You saved your whole career. 40 years of watching the budget, driving the car a little longer than you needed to, and saying no to the things that maybe seem frivolous. And now you're sitting on $1.2 or $1.6 million or more, and you're feeling guilty about spending any of it. The trips, they keep getting pushed out, and the kitchen, it's still the same one from 2009. And somewhere in the back of your head, a voice keeps saying, what if we need this later? That voice, it's not protecting you. It's the same habit that built the nest egg, and it doesn't know how to turn off. In this video, I want to show you exactly what's happening and what it actually takes to fix it, because it's really not a math problem. I'm Mike Dunlop, a CFP and co-founder of Ignite Financial in Cedar Falls, Iowa. We built the firm flat fee and fee only on purpose. No commissions, no percentage of your nest egg, no sales pitch. I was trained as an accountant, so I'm conservative with the numbers and maybe a little obsessed with not leaving Uncle Sam a tip. But mostly, I've got the heart of a teacher. If you don't understand what we're doing, I haven't done my job. Let's get into it. You did everything right. Most of the people I sit down with, they've generally done things right. Now, not lottery ticket right, but hard-won decade after decade, consistent and boring right. They maxed out what they could, they kept their lifestyle inflation in check, and they showed up for work every day when they didn't feel like it because the 401k match, well, it's not going to fund itself. And that kind of discipline has a cost that nobody really talks about. It rewires how you think about money. Frugality stops being a strategy, and now it's become your identity. And you stop asking, can I afford this? And start asking, should I ever spend this? And the answer that I most typically hear is no. And that thought, that's fine when you're 42 years old. But when you're 66 and you've got a sound balance sheet, well, that's a problem. So before we go any further, I want to say this plainly. If you built it, you did your job. The point of the whole accumulation phase was always to fund the spending phase. If you never get to the spending phase, you didn't build wealth, you just stored it. And the research says you're not alone. And I want you to know that this isn't a personal failing. The pattern shows up in the data consistently. According to Employee Benefit Research Institute, roughly 31% of high asset retirees still had 100% or more of their starting assets 21 to 22 years into retirement. Think about that for a minute. More than 2 decades in, nearly a third of the people with real money hadn't spent a dime of the principal. The balance had actually grown. Now, some of that is investment returns doing their job, but a big piece of it is behavioral. These folks, they couldn't bring themselves to spend it. Morningstar's behavioral research backs that up too, finding that a lot of retirees with at least median assets, they consistently underspend relative to what their portfolio can maybe safely support. And this isn't a fringe problem. It's one of the most common things I see when families first come in. The spreadsheet looks fine, the plan makes sense, but yet they're still driving a 12-year-old car. Let's picture a hypothetical couple here, and I want to call them Carol and Dave Hutchins. They're both 66. Carol was a school administrator for 31 years, and Dave, he spent his career in manufacturing. And between the two of them, they've got $1.6 million saved in retirement accounts. The house is paid off, and they're a few months into retirement. And they've been talking about going to Portugal for years. Carol has a whole folder of things she's clipped from travel magazines. The kitchen also needs an update, maybe about $35,000 worth. And Dave's truck, Well, it has 148,000 miles on it, and they haven't done any of this. The Portugal trip feels wasteful when they think about it. The kitchen isn't broken, it's just dated. And the truck, it still runs. When we sit down and I run the numbers, the math is not even close. At a 4% withdrawal rate, they can take $64,000 a year from the portfolio. And that's on top of what Social Security brings in. They could fund that trip to Portugal, remodel the kitchen, and buy Dave a new truck. And it would barely register on a 30-year projection. When I show them that, Carol looks at the numbers for a long moment, and then she says, "It still feels wrong." That sentence right there is the whole problem. A lot of people think the answer is just better math. Run the projection, see that the money lasts, and feel okay spending. And sure, math helps. But it's a math answer to a psychology question, which is why it only maybe goes so far. And I know what some of you are thinking right now. Mike, I've read about the 4% rule. I know I can probably spend that much, but I can't make myself do it. Exactly. Because the 4% rule is just a guardrail. It's not a green light. It tells you where the cliff is. It doesn't hand you the keys. The other issue is that the rule was built around survival, not enjoyment. William Bengen's original research on this was stress tested against the worst 30-year market periods in American history. It was a floor, not a target. If you treat it like a ceiling and stay well under it out of caution, well, you're going to go 30 years without ever testing whether the caution was even warranted. By then, the Portugal folder is out of date and Dave's next truck might be harder to enjoy. So what's actually going on here? Behavioral economists call this loss aversion. And it's a concept documented by researchers Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky. And the basic finding is that losses feel roughly twice as painful as equivalent gains feel good. So, pulling $25,000 from an account registers emotionally as a loss, even when the account can absorb it without a flinch. And combine that with a 40-year identity built around not touching that principle, and you've got someone who is technically retired, but psychologically still in accumulation mode. And that switch from saving to spending, it requires an identity shift that a spreadsheet is not going to produce. And I'd also push back on one framing I hear a lot, which is that holding back is the conservative move. It really isn't. Not spending doesn't make your money safer. It just means that someone else is going to spend it later on things you may have never chosen. Your kids might be great. They also might have different ideas about what that money is for. The conservative move is using the plan you built. What does a permission slip actually look like? What does it actually take to make the spending feel okay? And from what I've seen, it comes down to a few things working together. And the first is a written plan with a specific number attached. Not a general sense that things look fine, an actual withdrawal figure, stress tested, with someone credible looking you in the eye and saying, "This is yours to use." That specificity matters. "You're probably okay" doesn't move the needle. $5,200 a month is what the plan supports does. The second is separating the spending accounts from the long-term accounts in a way that registers visually. When the money you spend this month lived in the same pile of money that you're protecting, every time you withdraw, it feels like a threat to the whole thing. And a lot of families I work with find it easier to spend once there's a bucket specifically designated for living and one for investing. You're not raiding the reserves. You're using what the reserve generates. And the third, It's just accountability to someone other than yourself. That 40 years of frugality, it doesn't dissolve because you ran a calculator. Having a fiduciary review the numbers with you, update them when life changes, and tell you annually that you're still on track. That's what makes the permission feel durable instead of theoretical. Not spending what you built doesn't make you careful. It makes the whole plan just incomplete. The money was always a tool, and tools are for using. So here's where we landed. That same discipline that built your nest egg, it can keep you from ever enjoying it. And again, that's a psychology problem, not a math one. The fix isn't a better spreadsheet. The fix is a written plan, a spending number that you can trust, and someone in your corner telling you that, hey, the math still holds up. If you're 5 to 10 years of retirement, or you're already crossed that line and you're still feeling stuck, that's exactly the conversation that we have with folks at Ignite. Book a free intro meeting through the link in the description, and let's figure out what your number actually is. Take care, guys.